Yo, how's it going, everyone? Welcome into a brand new episode of Spencer Talks NASCAR. I'm your host, Spencer Urquhart, here, ready to talk all things Talladega. Y'all, it's Talladega this weekend. Dega weekend. Cannot wait. Always a fun one. Going to be breaking that race down, as well as going down memory lane a little bit. Going to be discussing the top finishes of all time at Talladega in my lifetime of watching NASCAR, which goes back to 2006. So they've definitely had a lot of thrilling finishes since then. Going to go over the 5 that have stuck in my mind the most. Going to rank them and such. So yeah, really excited to discuss that. But we're going to put Texas to bed first because we had the race at Texas last week. Chase Elliott snaps his dry spell, y'all. Chase Elliott no longer on a winless streak. He is back in victory lane. Got it done last week at Texas, and it was a pretty wild race because, I mean, they had a lot of challengers there trying to catch him. Denny Hamlin was right there. He spun out and crashed. Ross Chastain was right there. He did not want to be in second last week because it was a wild deal. Chastain, not sure what exactly happened with him, but he got bumped by William Byron. Didn't look like Byron's fault. It looked like Chastain had checked up or something, and boom, around he went. So yeah, that was a pretty wild event there at Texas. To me, it was the one that was memorable in that it was action packed, had a lot of cautions, a lot of action. You know, drivers were really having to do what they could do to stay out of the wall, you know, because it was just a kind of a wild race, but it was a fun one, you know, and then they had some strategy at the end with different guys like Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch. Brad Keselowski ended up finishing second, didn't have the best of car, but he got lucky there with the strategy to where guys like him and Kyle Busch got the pit. Because the caution came out, this was lap 50 something, I believe. The caution came out to where then a lot of the leaders had already pitted. They were just going to stretch it. And the ones that didn't get lapped, like Tyler Reddick and Chase Elliott, they were good because they just were able to stay out where the other guys pitted, and then it just created a guy like Tyler Reddick, though. It wasn't good for him because he got shuffled back and ended up not with as good of a finish as he would have had he just had the race going green the rest of the way. But a guy like Chase Elliott, it didn't matter. He ended up winning. So congrats to Chase Elliott. Reddick was my pick to win. A little disappointed there. He led a lot of laps. I mean, my logic was there. I mean, he's really good at mile and a half. And then Kyle Larson dominated early on, but he spun out early and was never able to really recover after that. So yeah, Texas, man, I think it was a good race. You know, it was pretty action packed. I mean, so far, mile and a half with the next gen car have been very, very improved, very solid, very good overall. Like to me, the mile and a half package is on point. Now it's a matter of fixing the short track package, and that's a story for another day. I don't think there's many short track races coming up because we had that big group of them there all bunched together early in the season. But now we're moving on to Talladega, some bigger tracks coming up. I believe we'll have Kansas and the Charlotte, you know, some bigger tracks here in the next month or so. Darlington, I believe, coming up soon. So, yeah, not too many short tracks coming up. So, luckily, we won't have to deal with the awful short track package for a little while. But Talladega, y'all, yeah, the super speedway package, pretty good. You know, this year's Daytona 500, you know, wasn't the best. It wasn't like a memorable one, but it wasn't bad. I mean, just it could have ended better. I mean, they had a lot of lead changes. You know, it just was unfortunate the way it ended under caution. But that's just the nature of the beast. You never know how these things can end. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna get into this thing. Talladega preview, y'all. It's gonna be an exciting one to talk about here. The field, I believe, 38 cars. Got a couple open cars. Shane Van Gisbergen making another start. So interested to see what he does. So let's get into it here. We got the field pulled up with the odds, courtesy of BetMGM. We're just going to get right into it. And before we give y'all our best bets, which didn't have a great week last week, kind of struggled. Did really well at Martinsville, Texas, so a pretty chaotic race. I almost put Chase Elliott in there. I should have just trusted my gut with that, but I was like, well, he did good the week before. I don't know if he'll sustain it. You know, he needed to show me a little something, but he definitely showed me something at Texas. So good job on his part for getting that race won, showing that he is still among the Cup Series elite drivers. So anyway, we'll have more discussion on that. Oh, and in the points, I want to discuss the points real quick. Chase Briscoe, a name that's kind of positioning himself to get in the playoffs there. And the three veterans, man, and they've got a good opportunity this week. You can see them all near the front of the odds chart. The big three veterans that are kind of scratching and clawing right now just to stay in that top 16. I think Keselowski is actually on the outside looking in. It's Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch there right on the bubble. Logano right there with him. Keselowski. I mean, it's brutal, man. I mean, this field with Daniel Suarez winning this year, that's creating a log jam. And then with Chase Briscoe running pretty well, not many people expected Suarez or Briscoe to make the playoffs this year. I mean, they're guys that are capable. I mean, in 2022, they both made it and won races. So they're both having bounce back years. But, a lot of people assume that all the Hendricks, all the Gibbs, Kyle Busch, the RFKs, the Penske's would all get in, but there's only 16 spots, y'all. Not all those guys can make it. The Trackhouse, I mean, looking like both Trackhouse cars are going to make it there with the Chastain and Suarez. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, RCR, Kyle Busch doesn't get his stuff together. RCR might get shut out altogether because I definitely don't see Austin Dillon making the playoffs. And then if Joey Logano doesn't get it together, I mean, Austin Cindric, he ain't pulling weight. So Ryan Blaney might be the only Penske car in the playoffs. So it'll be really interesting. I'm not sure how well Briscoe will be able to maintain his current momentum. His Stewart-Haas teammates aren't doing as well. Noah Gregson's still having a fairly decent season. Preece and Josh Berry, though, more than likely out of the playoffs. So, I mean, even Gregson, because of that points been on it, he's going to need to sneak a win probably to get in. So, yeah, the points pretty interesting right now. Very tight among the bubble guys. The top 10 or so look pretty safe. I'd say guys like Blaney, Byron, Elliott, Larson, Hamlin. Well, most of them have, Blaney doesn't, and Ross Chastain. I mean, pretty much if you're in the top 10, Christopher Bell, Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex, if you're in that top 10, you're pretty safe, it looks like. But if you're outside of that, you better run well. You better start putting together good runs to give yourself a little cushion, because if not, you might end up on the outside looking in come the cut line time. But that's still a long ways away. We'll have more talk about that in the coming weeks. But let's talk about this Dega field here. Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski currently co-favorites there at 8-1. That makes sense. I mean, Blaney, Keselowski, both really good here. I would say Blaney probably deserves to be the favorite. Keselowski, it's been a little minute since he's actually won here. Blaney, though, has won here a lot recently. But, I mean, we don't know what Keselowski can do here. I mean, he won his first ever Cup race here. We're going to get to that in the greatest Dega finishes of my lifetime. But yeah, Keselowski, I mean, he's still good. He's still a contender. I probably wouldn't bet on him though there at 8-1. He didn't show that well at Daytona. The RFK cars didn't really show out like they normally do on the plate tracks. Even Atlanta, they struggle. I think they'll do pretty good, but to me, Keselowski shouldn't be the favorite. Let's just say he's not among my best bets this week. A name that will be among my best bets, though, Joey Logano there at 12-1. I think that's a value. To me, he should probably be the co-favorite with Blaney. And then William Byron, our Daytona 500 winner there in the mix. Chase Elliott, last week's winner. Elliott, he's won at Dega before. He's someone that could maybe, he might do a string 2 in a row. Eddie Hamlin got multiple wins. Byron, it's been the trend this year, usually the chalk guys win, but these plate races tend to open things up. I mean, the Daytona 500, Byron, chalk winner, but Alex Bowman was right there. His teammate in Atlanta was Daniel Suarez. So you just never know at these drafting tracks who's going to break through. And then Denny Hamlin at 14-1, kind of sneaky there. He was, I think, the Daytona 500 favorite. He's might be getting a little slept on there this week. And then Kyle Busch, 15-1, won this race last year, finally broke his Dega dry spell. Hadn't won a Dega since 2008, but finally got it done last year. He's a guy that in that RCR equipment, they're struggling on short tracks. It didn't show that well last week, but on these drafting tracks, man, Kyle Busch is among the top dogs, as well as Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace has been really trending up lately. He thrives on these plate tracks. Got his first career win here at Dega, and yeah, he's definitely going to be in the mix. Ross Chastain, he's a Dega winner. Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric showed well first 2 weeks of the year. He's a name to watch for sure. at these drafting tracks. Pretty much his only hope of making the playoffs. So we'll know he'll be doing whatever he can do to get to the front. Then Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, not guys that are known for doing well at these kind of tracks. They're more the traditional racers that tend to thrive at the more traditional tracks. Mile and a half and short tracks, but I mean, they're both talented guys, so you never know. They might be able to sneak their way up to the front. Ricky Stenhouse, he's the opposite. He's a guy that doesn't tend to do a whole lot elsewhere, but on these plate tracks, he is a name to watch for sure. And then Christopher Bell, he's been in a little bit of a funk lately. He's capable of doing well at these kind of tracks. This isn't really his style, though. Ty Gibbs, the same. They're both capable, but they tend to be better at the more traditional tracks. Same with Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman. Yeah, I mean, all these are I wouldn't say they're bad bets at these prices, but they're just, I don't know. I mean, they haven't shown me quite enough of these kind of tracks to want to back them from a betting standpoint. Chris Buescher, though, at 25-1, I like that. Chris Buescher, everyone's talking up Brad Keselowski this week, especially after he finished second last week. But I think Buescher is a much better value there at 25-1 than Daniel Suarez, y'all, 30-1, along with Eric Jones. And then Todd Gilliland, a very sneaky name. Him and his teammate Michael McDowell. Gilliland led laps at Daytona and Atlanta, I believe. And then McDowell, he's someone that's won on drafting tracks before with Front Row Motorsports. So I think those front row guys are getting kind of slept on there because, they've got the Penske Alliance. So I think those guys could make some noise this week. And Chase Briscoe, 40-1, he made some noise. I believe the Daytona 500, he was running up front at times. And then Justin Haley, Austin Dillon, Noah Gregson, these are guys that could all work their way up to the front potentially. Corey LaJoy, 50-1. He's the classic long shot play at these plate tracks. Probably wouldn't take him this week. He's been in a little bit of a funk, but he could always snap out of it this week. You never know. Then Ryan Preece there, kind of down. We get more toward the real long shots here. Carson Hocevar, a rookie. John Hunter Nemechek, Zane Smith, all capable, but inexperienced, but you never know. Harrison Burton, it's just not enough data for me to feel confident in these guys. If you're just feeling lucky, but there's enough proven veterans there. Right? You can get guys like the McDowells and Gilliland and stuff. They're pretty long shots. They're not as long as these, but these guys are long shots for a reason. This is like the very bottom of the list here. Hemrick, Shane Van Gisbergen, and SVG. I wouldn't trust SVG here from a betting standpoint. They're just wanting him to get experience at this place. Just hope he can just stay in the lead draft, stay on the lead lap. I don't think he's a real threat to run up front, but you never know. Talladega, they've had rookies do well before. It's the thing with Van Gisbergen. He's a guy that not a NASCAR guy growing up. He's from New Zealand, was Australian supercars. This is not his bread and butter, but we'll see what he can do here. Anthony Alfredo, one of the open cars this week for Beard Motorsports, a 62. Out of all these here, he might be the one to watch, honestly. There you got Cody Ware. It's been so long since he's been in a car. He had gotten suspended, had a bunch of legal issues. I would not trust Cody Ware. And BJ McLeod, BJ McLeod, he's a feel-good story, but it's like you never know if he's going to be on the lead pace or not. So Anthony Alfredo, if you're looking for a super deep long shot, might be the one that could maybe work his way up. The rest of these long shots, I'd probably stay away from. Harrison Burton, though, Wood Brothers, 100-1. He was a sleeper pick for me at Atlanta, and I think finished 11th, or maybe he did get the top 10 for me. I think he barely missed it, but he was someone that I felt like was a good play there. 3-1 this week to get the top 10. I don't think that's great value, but you could do worse. But anyway, let's get to the best bets here. We'll go scroll back to the favorites here, and then we'll get to the best bets. All right, here we go, y'all. Dega, best bets. My top 10 plays are Michael McDowell at plus 180 and Austin Cindric at plus 125. We'll start with McDowell, y'all. This is great value, in my opinion. His teammate Ty Gilliland was intriguing too, but McDowell there, plus 180, you can't beat it. Look at these guys here. These are all capable drivers, but Michael McDowell, someone that's won in this car before on drafting track, Daytona 500 winner, and he's run well at Dega before. This year got a top 10 at Atlanta. He led laps in both drafting track races this year. I think McDowell is a very good value there because, I mean, as long as he doesn't run into trouble, as long as his car holds up, to me, he very much capable of running top 10, and you're getting him at a lot better than even money there at plus 180. So I feel like that's a good play. And then Austin Cindric there, closer to even money there at plus 125. But it's one of those deals to where, I mean, shoot, the way Austin Cindric's been running on these kind of tracks is kind of similar to McDowell in that as long as he doesn't run into trouble, he's got the pace to run up front and could easily get top 5, maybe even win the race. I mean, he's got Penske equipment, but I think top 10's a pretty safe play for him because guys like I said, Truex and Larson, this isn't really their bread and butter. A guy like Cindric, though, this is his chance to really make a statement. So while he could be intriguing there to finish top 5 or top 3, I think top 10's a pretty safe play. You know, you're getting him at a little better than even money. So, I mean, you're getting somewhat of a value there with him at plus 125. Top 5, please. I've got Ross Chastain there at plus 325. I'm surprised he's at the same price as Austin Cindric. And then Kyle Busch. I like Kyle Busch this week to get a top 5 plus 260. We'll start with Chastain. I mean, the reason I feel a little bit better about him than Cindric because I feel like Chastain's the kind of guy, as long as he doesn't wreck, like he's the guy, he's going to dart, bob, and weave. He's going to do his damnedest to get in that top 5. I mean, he could easily win. I mean, he could be worth a flyer there at 18-1 to win the race. But we're going to play it a little safer there with there's some Fords I like. Yeah, I mean, Blaney, Logano, Keselowski, because, I mean, this is the week. I'll just come out and say it. I think Ford breaks their dry spell this week. Ford yet to win a race this year, but I think this is the week they get it done. I mean, they live for these drafting tracks. They damn near had it at Atlanta with Blaney. Then at Daytona, they had so many good cars. They just had bad luck. All their big dogs got caught up in that big one. Blaney, Keselowski, and Logano all got wrecked, I believe, on the same lap at Daytona. So they just had bad luck. I think that'll change this week. But I got a couple of Chevy drivers here. Chastain, you know, he's done really good at Dega. He's former Dega winner, won there, I believe, in 22. And then Kyle Busch won this race last year. And with RCR, like I mentioned earlier, he's really good at these kind of tracks. And he's being one of those bubble guys, you know, at the points. I mean, him, Logano, Keselowski, it's super crucial for them to run well this week. They've got to avoid getting caught in the big one. So I think Kyle might play it a little bit safe, you know, as far as a lot of guys might just like, I like Cindric. He's so far back in the points. He'll be probably wanting to do some more daredevil stuff, or he might make a big move and then get shuffled back a little bit out of the top 5 and have to settle for top 10. Where a guy like Kyle Busch, I think, will probably play it a little safer. So I think he's a little better bet to finish top 5. And you're getting him at pretty good value there at plus 260. I would say Chastain's probably the slightly better play there at plus 325. But Kyle Busch right there, you know, I usually give out 2 top 5 plays. So I played them both this week. I already got my initial line of bets in. I'll probably just stay with that. I feel like last week I got burned because then I tried to get cute and do a bunch of alternate plays and none of those hit. So just stick with your gut, y'all. Just stick with the basic picks. Don't try to overthink it and make like 20 bets and stuff because that's what they want you to do. They want you to make more bets because they figure the more bets you make, the less chance you have of winning. Where if you make more selective, smarter bets, that's when you tend to actually win something. So that's just my 2 cents. I mean, I'm actually no longer a sports betting writer. That's what I was doing with NOLA.com. I'm now back to being a regular sports reporter, so I won't be covering it quite as much, but I'm still going to study this NASCAR stuff for this show to give y'all best bets for NASCAR. So because NASCAR is the thing I like doing the most anyway. Because I mean, everyone does NFL and all that. I mean, I like fantasy football. I'm more of a fantasy football player than a NFL better. But anyway, I'll quit rambling about that. Let's get back to it here. Top 3, Denny Hamlin, 4-1 to finish top 3. I think that's a good price there. Denny, someone that we all know what he can do at these kind of tracks. I mean, he's won a bunch of times at these drafting tracks, and he could definitely win this week potentially. I mean, 14-1 spicy, but again, I think those Fords, I think they're going to link up, and they got more numbers than Toyota. I mean, Toyota's got more numbers now with the legacy cars, but I still think Ford is in the best shape this week to get that win because they've got so many big dogs. Where I mean, you look at the odds here. I mean, I think Hamlin's the top Toyota. I mean, this isn't really Toyota's space. I mean, Toyota's more on the short tracks and intermediates because you got like Blaney Ford, Keselowski Ford, Logano Ford, Byron Chevy, Elliott Chevy, and then Hamlin and Kyle Busch Chevy, Bubba Toyota. So there's just, I mean, Chastain Chevy, Cindric Ford, Larson Chevy, Truex Toyota. But it's just, my point is that there's just more Fords and Chevys with better chances of running up front, it looks like. So to me, Hamlin might get a little hindered by that, but he's so good. He can make moves a lot of times without even needing much help. He's usually got really good cars, and he's also really good at working the draft. You know, he's the super experienced and is just so good at working the draft, better than like Martin Truex. I mean, Truex isn't bad, but it's just, I feel like Hamlin's the one among these Toyota guys. Him and Bubba Wallace are the two that are really good at working the draft, knowing where to go, how to time it. It's a weird science. It's a very inexact science, I feel like. But certain guys, I mean, just know how to do it. I mean, look at the Earnhardts. I mean, Dale Sr., Dale Jr. back in the 2000s. I mean, they just knew how to read the draft and knew when to block and time it and all that. It's really interesting. A lot of people just want to say, oh, it's luck, but there's definitely an art to it. So Denny Hamlin, definitely someone I feel good about. He has mastered the art of drafting and blocking and such. So 4-1 to finish top 3. I'll take that all day. And then my pick to win, y'all, Joey Logano. 12-1. I don't like picking Joey Logano, not one of my favorite drivers, but I got to say he has been trending up lately, and I think he gets it done this week. I think he gets it done to squash all doubt of him making the playoffs. You know, he got off to that slow start. People were questioning, was he going to have a down year? Even I was kind of questioning it, going back to a few years back when he did have a bad year. But really, when you look at Joey Logano's career, he has had very few down years since joining Penske. I was a little harsh on him there a few weeks ago, and I really went back and looked at it objectively. I was like, okay, I mean, Joey Logano's been among the elite. I mean, most years he is a championship contender. And so I don't expect that to change this year. I think he'll get it going. He has the past few weeks. He's run a lot better. And I think this is a week he gets his first win of 2024 and punches his ticket to the playoffs. He's in great equipment. Team Penske, really good. He had the best car at Daytona. Let's be real. I mean, before that wreck, Joey Logano was dominating. I think he still led the most laps in the 500. So, I mean, if all things being equal, I'm going to go with the guy that's been running well, seems to have the best car. So, I mean, if he had 12-1, you're getting value on him to win, because I know Blaney's really good and Keselowski, but I feel like Logano should be the one co-favored with Blaney, not Keselowski. So while all three of these are capable, I mean, from a betting standpoint, you want to go with the guy that you feel offers the most value. And while I definitely feel like Blaney or Keselowski could win, I mean, the sentimental play is Keselowski. I mean, I think he's the one that the people want to win. Probably got a lot of public money coming in on Keselowski. That's probably why his odds there aren't very good. But Logano, you know, he's a guy that, I mean, I'll admit, he's not my favorite driver by any means, but we got to play this stuff smart. You know, you can't bet with your heart, bet with your head. And I mean, Logano is a very smart play this week. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for the best bets. Appreciate y'all for rocking with us here. We're going to now get nostalgic here and talk the greatest Talladega finishes of my lifetime of watching NASCAR, going back to 2006. So we're going to get right into it here. The number 5 finish at Talladega race. You know, I usually just go with the finish because, I mean, the races, I mean, all the races are pretty similar. There's a lot of bobbing and weaving, a lot of action, a lot of passing. So it really comes down to the finish. A lot of times what makes the Dega race great or not. And so we're going to start off here. Number 5 for me, the 2010 spring race, the one where Kevin Harvick slingshotted Jamie McMurray to get the victory. Man, Jamie McMurray was riding high this year, y'all. This was the year that he joined Ganassi, won the Daytona 500, was riding high, just had a great year that year, great career resurgence after years of struggling with Roush racing. And yeah, he had this one won, but Kevin Harvick, y'all, the closer, freaking edged him out right at the line. What a finish, y'all. That was a fun one. That was a race that, going back down the rabbit hole, that was one that was a really good race. This was the 2-car tandem era, which I got to say, I know some people hate on the 2-car tandem era, but man, the 2-car tandem era really produce some good finishes, as we're about to see. I mean, all 3 years of that, I mean, I think it was like 09, 10, and 11. All 3 years with the two-car tandem produced amazing finishes, because when you had the two cars like that, you know, someone could try to, you know, do that slingshot at the end, and that would produce some really crazy stuff there, as we're about to move on to our next one here, which is the number 4 to the 2009 spring race, which I know is an ugly ending, but it's one that definitely will go down in history. Brad Keselowski's first career win. Carl Edwards throws the block thinking he's going to win. I don't think Carl Edwards ever won at Talladega in his the legendary career, but he had his chance here. He had run in the back all race. That was the key with that, with all the wrecks and stuff. He wanted to stay in the back for a lot of it and then make your way to the front late. And Edwards did just that, timed it just right. Was linked up with Keselowski, who had a fast car with the 09 team. James Finch, I believe, was the owner. And they were doing their thing. But Carl tried to make the move. Or Keselowski made the move actually on Carl, and then Carl went to block, but the block was too late. Carl's car not only went spinning, but went flying through the air, because back then they had the rear wings, the spoilers that freaking cause cars to flip so easy. So Carl's car freaking flipped, then got projectiled into the air. They got hit by Ryan Newman's car. Newman's freaking whole hood got smashed in, and then Carl's car didn't really went flying projectile up off of Newman into the catch fence. A really scary incident. I believe a few fans got injured there. It was kind of a very sad ending with the way that car got just mangled up like that. But luckily, Carl was okay. He did the classic Ricky Bobby, got out of his car and ran across the start-finish line. That was fun. So all in all, you know, and then Keselowski ended up being a champion in the sport, got his first career win. So mainly positive there. Just really sad that I think some fans got hurt, but you know, just they NASCAR responded. They changed the rear spoiler and stuff to where there weren't nearly as many flips after that. So number 3, the 2006 fall race, another controversial ending, but this is one that no one got hurt. It was just kind of funny the way this went down, because Brian Vickers, the lame duck Hendrick driver at the time, was not, I don't think he knew where he was going. He ended up going to Team Red Bull, which ended up a disaster. But at this time, he may have still been a free agent. He was freaking trying to get this is his first career win, trying to get his first career win. He was running 3rd place, top 2 stars, Dale Jr., Jimmy Johnson. People just assumed that it would go chalk. Jr. was out front. You know, Jimmy was trying to get good points there. I think they both were. So that Jr. was good that year too. They were both trying to have good points days, you know, to stay up front in the old chase, which was, it was a 10 race thing. If you had a bad finish, that could really set you back. But Brian Vickers didn't care. He wasn't in the chase. He was a lame duck. So he went and bumped Jimmy Johnson, who got into Dale Jr., and they both spun out. Vickers kept going, though. And then when the caution came out, Vickers was out front. Almost got passed by Casey Kane, but by the time the caution came out, Vickers was still out front, and he went on to win the race. Not a popular win. Junior Nation was mad. Hendrick was mad because that almost cost Jimmy Johnson the championship. He still ended up winning the championship that year, so no harm, no foul at the end of the day. But, man, just imagine if that had cost Jimmy what at the time. That was his first championship. Then he went on to win 4 more. So, but, yeah, that finish was really something. Brian Vickers pulled that out. That's one I still like to go back and watch to this day, because it's funny. They're running single file. Like for the past, it's like 7 to go, and they're all just running single file. It's a lot of, you can tell something's about to happen, though. There's a lot of suspense building up, and in that eventful ending, man, that was definitely one that's going to live in my mind. And then number 2, another fall race, last year's fall race, actually. Ryan Blaney versus Kevin Harvick, the up-and-comer versus the proven veteran. I mean, Ryan Blaney had already proven himself at Dega, multi-time Dega winner, but he really needed this win to try to solidify his spot in the next round of the playoffs. Kevin Harvick, I think, was already out of the playoffs at this point. But, I mean, it was his last ever race at Dega, his last full-time Cup season. So, you know, he wanted it bad to go out with a win. But, unfortunately for Harvick, Blaney edged him out ever so slightly at the end, and the big one happened behind them. A pretty wild ending there. But Ryan Blaney, y'all, ended up winning that race and going on to win the championship. So to me, that one was a really famous one, because I like Ryan Blaney, y'all. I mean, I mean, I'm sticking with Kyle Busch as my favorite driver, but if Kyle Busch were to retire, I'd probably root for Ryan Blaney, man. Ryan Blaney, I really rock with him. He seems like a very genuine guy, a fun driver to root for. He's competitive without being a jackass. He's got a good head on his shoulders, it seems like, and he knows, like, he gets fired up at times, but he usually doesn't take it too far. I think he's a people's kind of driver. Like, everyone loves Chase Elliott, but let's be real. I mean, if Ryan Blaney's dad was Bill Elliott and Chase Elliott's dad was Dave Blaney, it's funny because, like, personality wise, Ryan Blaney, I feel, is the more colorful personality, where back in the day, I mean, not many people knew about Dave Blaney, or Bill Elliott was, I mean, the people's champ, most popular driver for many years. So anyway, not to get on that tangent, but yeah, really glad to see Blaney do that last year. And it was a really thrilling finish. I mean, photo finish there, with the next gen car. Had to throw in a more recent Dega finish on this list. If y'all think it's too high, comment and let me know. But I mean, I think it's about right. And then number 1, the 2011 spring race, which, again, 2-car tandem. And you probably think, man, he's showing all this love to the 2-car tandem. But, man, they produced some epic finishes, man. 3 years in a row of bangers. And to me, this was the best one, even though the winner was Jimmy Johnson. Y'all know I'm not the biggest Jimmy Johnson Hendrick guy. But, I mean, I got to be real. That finish was epic. 4 2-car tandem, so 8 drivers, all within striking distance of the win. The tandems was Jimmy and who was he with? Junior, I think. Yeah, I think it was Jimmy and Dale Jr. And then Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon. So all the Hendrick cars were paired up. Then RCR, I think it was Harvick and Boyer paired up. And then Roush, it was Roush, Edwards and Greg Biffle, I think. It was the 8 of them, all duking it out. The Roush cars were a little too late. And then Gordon and Martin. Jeff Gordon led the last lap, but they faded a little bit too. So it really was down to, I think it was Johnson and Boyer at the line to see who would get it done. And, man, it was really close. I think if they all know the start-finish line at Talladega is a little further down than at most tracks. I think if it had been in the traditional spot, like in the very middle of the tri-oval, I think Clint Boyer would have won, but because it was a little further down, it allowed Jimmy Johnson to edge him out. Thanks to Dale Jr. pushing him. I mean, Dale Jr., we all know how good he was at Dega. So, yeah, Jimmy Johnson edges out Clint Boyer. I believe that's still the closest finish in NASCAR history. Well, actually, Ricky Craven, Kurt Busch, that was the closest. But this was, I think, the second closest. So, yeah, that was crazy. I mean, in kind of like that Atlanta race this year at Suarez, KB, and Blaney, he's that was they say 3-wide finish. I believe this Dega one was a 4-wide finish. So, yeah, quite a show there. But to me, that's number 1, Jimmy Johnson edging out Clint Boyer in the 2011 fall race. So that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in. We'll be back next week to recap Dega and talk about the next one. So we're going to be back next week. Peace out, y'all.